Behind the innocent pink harem pants and charming blink magic lay one of television's most scandalous productions. From Larry Hagman's drunken on-set meltdowns that included urinating on furniture, to the shocking truth about Jeannie's iconic bottle being a liquor decanter, this beloved 1960s sitcom was far stranger and more controversial than fans ever imagined. Prepare to discover the jaw-dropping secrets that nearly destroyed careers and scandalized network executives. Fact 1. Jeannie's bottle was a bourbon whiskey decanter. One of television's most recognizable props has a surprisingly humble origin that would shock most fans of I Dream of Jeannie. Mystical-looking bottle that served as Jeannie's magical home throughout the series was actually nothing more than a 1964 Jim Beam Christmas bourbon whiskey decanter that anyone could have purchased at their local liquor store for just $5.99. The story of how this ordinary alcohol container became television magic begins with the show's creators desperately searching for the perfect Jeannie bottle. According to multiple accounts, first-season director Gene Nelson was walking past a liquor store when he spotted the distinctive Jim Beam decanter in the window display. The bottle was part of Jim Beam's special Christmas edition line, designed by Roy Kramer for the Wheaton Bottle Company as a collectible holiday item. Its unique shape, with a bulging base section and narrow conical neck, immediately caught Nelson's eye as the ideal vessel for a Jeannie's home. Nelson purchased the bottle and brought it to series creator Sidney Sheldon, who agreed it was perfect for the show. The production team then transformed this simple bourbon decanter into something that looked ancient and mystical by painting it with elaborate Middle Eastern design motifs over a base layer of paint. During the first season, when the show was filmed in black and white, they used a smoky glass version with golden vine patterns. When the series switched to color in Season 2, they repainted new bottles with the famous purple, pink, and gold design that became iconic. The heat and chemicals used to create Jeannie's magical smoke effects frequently cracked these painted bottles, so the production went through approximately 12 different Jim Beam decanters during the show's 5-year run. Today, original Jim Beam bottles from 1964 are highly sought after by collectors who want to create their own Jeannie bottle replicas. Fact 2. Larry Hagman urinated on set when angry. Behind the charming exterior of Major Tony Nelson lay one of television's most shocking cases of on-set misconduct that remained hidden from the public for decades. In her candid memoir, Jeannie Out of the Bottle, Barbara Eden revealed that her co-star Larry Hagman had a disturbing habit of expressing his frustration with the show by literally urinating all over the I Dream of Jeannie set whenever he disagreed with scripts or production decisions. This bizarre form of rebellion stemmed from Hagman's growing dissatisfaction with what he perceived as weak and repetitive storylines throughout the series. As someone who took his craft seriously, Hagman became increasingly frustrated with the show's formulaic approach and felt that the writing quality was declining with each season. Rather than handling his concerns through normal professional channels, Hagman chose to express his displeasure in the most inappropriate way imaginable. Eden described in her memoir how Hagman would retreat to his dressing room between scenes, where he consumed vast quantities of champagne and smoked marijuana, in what he claimed were efforts to maintain calm serenity. However, when his chemical coping mechanisms failed to ease his frustrations with the production, he would emerge and deliberately urinate on various parts of the set as an act of defiance against the producers and writers. This shocking behavior created an extremely uncomfortable working environment for Eden and the rest of the cast and crew, who had to deal with both the unsanitary conditions and the unprofessional atmosphere that Hagman's actions created. The fact that such outrageous conduct was kept secret for so many years speaks to the different standards of the 1960s television industry, where studios often went to great lengths to protect their stars' public images regardless of their private behavior. Eden's decision to finally reveal these details in her memoir decades later provided fans with a startling glimpse into the darker reality behind one of television's most beloved family-friendly shows. Fact 3. Barbara Eden was pregnant throughout Season 1. One of television's best-kept secrets involved Barbara Eden performing some of the most physically demanding scenes in television history, while hiding a major personal development from millions of viewers. Throughout almost the entire first season of I Dream of Jeannie, Eden was actually pregnant with her first child, a fact that the production team managed to conceal so successfully that audiences had no idea their beloved Jeannie was expecting. The timing couldn't have been more challenging for the new series. Eden discovered and confirmed her pregnancy on the exact same day that NBC officially picked up I Dream of Jeannie for a full-season run in 1965. This created an immediate crisis for the producers, who had to decide whether to replace their leading lady or find creative ways to work around her changing condition. Fortunately for television history, they chose to keep Eden and instead relied on the ingenuity of the costume and set design teams. The solution involved dramatically modifying Jeannie's signature revealing costume by adding layers of flowing veils, extra fabric, and strategic draping that cleverly concealed Eden's growing belly, while still maintaining the character's exotic, mystical appearance. Larry Hagman later recalled how the production team worked frantically to film 10 episodes back-to-back as quickly as possible because Eden was getting bigger with each passing week, requiring costume designers to constantly add more and more fabric to her outfit. Eden herself joked years later in a Lifetime documentary that during this period, she looked like a walking tent due to all the additional material draped around her midsection. The only episode where her natural figure was visible was the pilot, The Lady in the Bottle, which had been filmed before she became pregnant. She was able to take a hiatus to give birth to her son with her then-husband Michael and Sarah before returning for the second season with her pre-pregnancy figure restored. Fact 4. The belly button controversy was media-created. One of the most famous pieces of television trivia about I Dream of Jeannie is actually based on a complete misunderstanding of how the show's censorship rules came to exist. For decades, fans have believed that NBC network censors were so strict in the 1960s that they absolutely forbade Barbara Eden from showing her belly button on screen, but the real story reveals that this controversy was entirely manufactured by an overly persistent entertainment reporter. When the show first began airing, NBC executives had no problem whatsoever with Eden's revealing costume or her exposed midriff. In fact, her high-waisted harem pants would occasionally ride down during filming, and her navel would be clearly visible on camera during early episodes. Nobody at the network cared about this at all, and no censorship rules existed regarding belly buttons at that time. The entire controversy began when a writer from The Hollywood Reporter started visiting the I Dream of Jeannie set and repeatedly asking Eden to show him her belly button. Eden found this request both inappropriate and amusing, so she began jokingly telling the reporter that he would have to pay to see it, playfully raising the price each time he asked. What started as Eden's way of deflecting an uncomfortable situation turned into a running gag between them. However, the reporter took this playful exchange seriously and wrote an article about Eden's supposedly forbidden navel, which other entertainment outlets then picked up and turned into a widespread story. The fake controversy grew so large that NBC's comedy show Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In even planned to do a sketch where they would dramatically unveil Eden's belly button to the world as a major television event. Only after this media-created frenzy did NBC finally decide to establish an official rule requiring Eden's navel to be covered at all times. The irony is that this famous piece of television censorship history was completely unnecessary and only existed because a reporter created a problem that didn't actually exist in the first place. Fact 5. Phil Spector appeared before his murder conviction. Years before he became known as a convicted murderer, music producer Phil Spector made a memorable guest appearance on I Dream of Jeannie that now seems disturbingly ironic given his later criminal history. In the fall of 1967, Spector appeared as himself in the third season episode titled Jeannie the Hip Hippie, playing a record executive who listens to Jeannie's magically created rock band. At the time of filming, Spector was at the absolute peak of his career and was considered one of the most sought-after record producers in the music industry. He had already created his famous wall of sound technique and had produced massive hits for artists like the Ronettes, the Crystals, and Ike and Tina Turner. When the I Dream of Jeannie writers needed a credible music industry figure for their episode about Jeannie forming a rock group, Spector was the obvious choice to represent the best in the business. Spector clearly enjoyed poking fun at himself and the entire music industry during his appearance on the show. In one particularly memorable scene, he takes a phone call with an unnamed artist and brutally tells them that despite their song having a very weak bridge, awful tempo, and lyrics that stink, he still considers it another guaranteed smash hit. This self-deprecating humor showed Spector's willingness to mock the superficial nature of the record business. In a bizarre production error that adds another layer of strangeness to his appearance, the end credits of the episode list Spector, even though he was clearly referred to as Phil Spector throughout the entire episode. This mistake has never been explained by anyone involved with the production. Decades later, Spector was convicted of second-degree murder in 2009 for the shooting death of actress Lana Clarkson at his mansion in 2003, making his light-hearted television appearance a disturbing piece of entertainment history. Fact 6. Special effects smoke destroyed bottles constantly. Creating Jeannie's magical smoke effects turned out to be one of the most destructive and expensive aspects of producing I Dream of Jeannie, as the special effects team discovered that their painted Jim Beam bottles couldn't withstand the harsh chemicals and intense heat required to create convincing magical smoke. The production went through approximately 12 different bottles during the show's 5-year run, with many of them cracking or completely shattering due to the demanding requirements of the smoke effects. The special effects process involved using various chemicals and heat sources to generate the colorful smoke that would billow out when Jeannie appeared from or disappeared into her bottle. During the first season, when the show was filmed in black and white, the effects team used simple gray smoke that was often created through screen overlays or basic animation techniques. However, when the series switched to color in the second season, the producers wanted much more elaborate rainbow-colored smoke effects that would showcase the new color format. Dick Albane, the behind-the-scenes special effects coordinator for the show, explained that creating these colorful smoke effects required much more intensive chemical processes and higher temperatures than the simple gray smoke used in the first season. The combination of heat and corrosive chemicals proved to be too much for the delicate painted surfaces of the converted liquor bottles, causing the paint to bubble, peel, or completely burn off. The bottles designated specifically for smoke effects, known as stunt bottles, suffered the worst damage and were broken most frequently. These bottles often had special modifications, including holes drilled through the bottom to allow smoke apparatus to be inserted, which made them even more fragile and susceptible to cracking under the stress of repeated heating and cooling cycles. The production team had to maintain a constant supply of backup bottles, each carefully hand-painted to match the show's distinctive purple and gold design, making the smoke effects one of the most expensive recurring costs in the series' production budget. Fact 7. A real lion terrorized Larry Hagman. One of the most terrifying moments in I Dream of Jeannie's production history occurred during the first season when the script called for a scene featuring a real African lion, creating a situation that revealed just how different Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman were when it came to handling dangerous situations. The episode, titled The Americanization of Jeannie, required both stars to work closely with a live lion, but only one of them managed to stay calm during the frightening encounter. Barbara Eden had previous experience working with big cats on other film sets, which made her somewhat of a lion expert, according to her own description in her memoir. Understanding how important it was to establish trust with the animal before filming began, Eden tried to convince Hagman that they both needed to spend time getting acquainted with their four-legged co-star before the cameras started rolling. Eden explained to Hagman that the proper procedure was to stand very still and allow the lion to smell him thoroughly, then lean forward very gingerly and stroke the animal as gently as possible so that the lion would become comfortable with his presence. However, Hagman wanted absolutely nothing to do with this bonding process and bluntly refused Eden's advice, telling her in very colorful language that he had no intention of making friends with any lion. When filming finally began, the consequences of Hagman's refusal to befriend the lion became immediately apparent. While Eden and the lion had developed a comfortable relationship, the big cat took one look at the unfamiliar Hagman and let out what Eden described as an absolutely almighty roar that echoed throughout the entire soundstage. The terrifying sound was so loud and intimidating that Hagman immediately bolted from the set along with several frightened crew members, leaving Eden alone with the lion, who remained perfectly calm in her presence. Hagman later confirmed this embarrassing incident during a panel discussion with Eden in 2011. Fact 8. The wedding episode killed the show. The decision to marry off Tony and Jeannie during the 5th season of I Dream of Jeannie proved to be one of television's most catastrophic creative choices, made even worse by NBC's misguided publicity stunt that backfired spectacularly and hastened the show's cancellation. In a desperate attempt to boost ratings and generate media attention, NBC's publicity department staged a completely fake wedding ceremony for Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman just 1 week before the actual wedding episode was scheduled to air on television. The network invited television writers from across the country to attend this elaborate fake ceremony, creating the illusion that Eden and Hagman had many guests celebrating their supposed real-life marriage. The publicity team hoped that this staged event would create buzz and excitement that would translate into higher viewership for the upcoming wedding episode. But their plan completely backfired in ways they never anticipated. Fans immediately saw through the insincere nature of the publicity stunt and felt manipulated by NBC's attempt to blur the lines between reality and fiction. The fake wedding ceremony came across as desperate and dishonest, causing viewers to turn against both the characters and the actors themselves. Instead of generating positive excitement, the stunt created negative feelings that carried over into audience reactions to the actual episode. Barbara Eden herself was completely opposed to the idea of having Tony and Jeannie get married, understanding that the romantic tension between the characters was one of the primary reasons viewers tuned in each week. She correctly predicted that once the characters were married, the show would lose the sexual tension and anticipation that had kept audiences engaged for 4 successful seasons. Eden later stated bluntly that the wedding episode ruined the show because it broke the fundamental credibility of the series. The marriage made no logical sense since Jeannie wasn't human, and it eliminated the playful dynamic that had made the show popular. The series was canceled shortly after the wedding episodes aired, proving Eden's concerns were completely justified. Fact 9. Hagman started each day drinking champagne. Larry Hagman's daily routine on the I Dream of Jeannie set involved a shocking combination of alcohol and drugs that Barbara Eden detailed years later in her candid memoir, revealing behavior that would be absolutely unacceptable by today's television production standards. According to Eden's first-hand account, Hagman began every single workday at the studio by consuming what she described as vast quantities of champagne, treating alcohol as a necessary morning ritual rather than an occasional indulgence. This wasn't simply a case of an actor having a drink to calm his nerves before filming difficult scenes. Eden explained that Hagman's champagne consumption was both excessive and constant throughout the workday, creating a pattern of behavior that affected his ability to concentrate on his lines and his interactions with the rest of the cast and crew. Between takes, Hagman would retreat to his private dressing room where he would continue drinking more champagne while also smoking marijuana, which he claimed helped him maintain what he called calm serenity. Hagman's substance use stemmed from his growing frustration with what he perceived as weak and repetitive scripts that didn't challenge him as an actor. As someone who took his craft seriously, Hagman became increasingly dissatisfied with the formulaic nature of the show's writing, and felt that the quality of the storylines was declining with each passing season. Rather than addressing these concerns through professional channels or discussions with the producers, he chose to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs as a way of coping with his creative disappointment. Eden's willingness to share these details in her memoir provided fans with a stark contrast between Hagman's public image as the clean-cut astronaut Major Nelson and his private reality as someone struggling with substance abuse issues. The revelation also highlighted the different standards of behavior that were tolerated in Hollywood during the 1960s compared to modern television production environments. Fact 10. The show's contest had a rigged outcome. One of I Dream of Jeannie's most elaborate storylines involved a viewer contest that appeared completely legitimate on screen, but was actually manipulated behind the scenes in ways that would shock modern audiences who expect transparency in television competitions. During a multi-episode arc that spread across 4 weeks, the show featured Jeannie being trapped inside a special safe, and viewers were invited to guess the combination that would free her, with the understanding that whoever guessed correctly would win a substantial prize. The contest episodes presented what seemed like a straightforward challenge where Tony Nelson would attempt to open the safe using various number combinations. But careful viewers might have noticed something strange about these scenes. Throughout all the episodes where Hagman's character was supposedly saying the combination numbers out loud, his mouth was mysteriously hidden, either behind the safe itself, or the camera would cut away to show Jeannie's reaction, instead of focusing on Tony's face while he spoke. This unusual filming choice wasn't an accident or a creative decision by the directors. The production team deliberately obscured Hagman's mouth because they had not yet decided what the winning combination would be when these episodes were filmed. The entire contest was essentially rigged from the beginning, since the producers waited until just before the final episode aired to determine which numbers would be declared the winning combination. Once the producers finally settled on 497 as the winning sequence, they brought Hagman back into the recording studio to dub in the audio of him saying these specific numbers. This dubbed audio was then matched to the previously filmed footage where his mouth had been strategically hidden, creating the illusion that he had been saying those exact numbers all along. At the end of the final contest episode, Barbara Eden appeared during the closing credits to announce the winning combination and congratulate the lucky viewer who had correctly guessed 497, never revealing that this outcome had been predetermined just days earlier. Fact 11. Producers almost replaced Hagman with Darren McGavin. Larry Hagman's increasingly difficult behavior on the I Dream of Jeannie set became so problematic that the show's producers reached a breaking point where they seriously considered the drastic step of firing their male lead and replacing him with an entirely different actor. The production team had grown tired of dealing with Hagman's unprofessional conduct, substance abuse issues, and general uncooperative attitude, leading them to explore options for continuing the series without him. The producer's top choice for Hagman's replacement was veteran actor Darren McGavin, who was already well established in television, and would later become famous for playing the father in A Christmas Story and starring in the Night Stalker series. McGavin had the right combination of acting experience, professional reputation, and leading man qualities that the producers felt could successfully take over the role and maintain the show's popularity with audiences. The replacement plan was so advanced that the writing team actually began developing specific storylines that would explain how McGavin's character would become Jeannie's new master. The proposed plot involved Tony Nelson somehow losing Jeannie, either through a magical mishap or by accidentally giving away her bottle, which would then be discovered by McGavin's character, who would become her new master and the show's new male lead. This dramatic casting change would have completely altered the fundamental dynamic of I Dream of Jeannie, since McGavin brought a very different acting style and screen presence compared to Hagman's approach to the role. McGavin was known for playing more serious, dramatic characters, which would have given the series a notably different tone and energy than the lighter, more comedic approach that Hagman brought to Major Nelson. Ultimately, the producers decided against making this major change, possibly due to concerns about how audiences would react to losing the familiar chemistry between Eden and Hagman that had made the show successful in the first place. Fact 12. The original theme song was rejected. The bouncy, instantly recognizable theme music that became synonymous with I Dream of Jeannie almost never existed, as the show's creators originally commissioned a completely different song from two of the most successful songwriters in popular music history. Before the series even began filming, producer Sidney Sheldon approached the legendary songwriting team of Jerry Goffin and Carole King to create the perfect theme song for his new magical sitcom about a genie and an astronaut. Goffin and King were already established hitmakers who had written numerous chart-topping songs for major recording artists throughout the early 1960s. Their impressive catalog included classics that had dominated radio airwaves, making them the ideal choice for creating a memorable television theme that would capture audiences' attention and stick in their minds long after each episode ended. The duo created an original composition specifically titled Jeannie that was designed to introduce the show's concept and characters to viewers each week. However, for reasons that have never been fully explained by anyone involved in the production, Sheldon and the other producers decided to completely reject this professionally written theme song and chose not to use it for the series. Instead of featuring any theme music at all, the first season of I Dream of Jeannie used various different opening sequences that relied primarily on narration and visual storytelling to establish the show's premise. Some episodes began with an expository sequence that explained how Tony and Jeannie met, while others used a shorter animated sequence without any distinctive musical accompaniment. The famous melodic theme that television audiences now associate with the show didn't actually appear until the second season, when the series switched from black and white to color filming and introduced the iconic animated opening sequence featuring Jeannie emerging from her bottle. This second season theme became one of television's most memorable pieces of music, proving that sometimes creative decisions that seem wrong initially can lead to better results. Fact 13. Paris Hilton once played Barbara Eden in one of the most unexpected casting choices in television history. Socialite and reality TV star Paris Hilton was selected to portray Barbara Eden in a bizarre crossover episode that connected two completely different eras of American entertainment. This strange piece of television occurred during the final season of NBC's nostalgic drama series, American Dreams, which ran from 2002 to 2005 and focused on a Philadelphia family during the turbulent 1960s. American Dreams was known for featuring popular stars from the mid-2000s portraying famous celebrities from the 1960s, creating an unusual blend of modern actors playing historical figures from decades before they were born. The show regularly featured young contemporary performers taking on the roles of iconic musicians, actors, and entertainers from the era, often with mixed results in terms of authenticity and believability. In one of the series' final episodes, the teenage main characters Meg Pryor, played by Brittany Snow, and her best friend Roxanne Bojarski, played by Vanessa Lenges, take a trip to Los Angeles during the early summer of 1966. While exploring a Hollywood studio lot, the girls accidentally stumble onto the actual I Dream of Jeannie set, where they encounter Barbara Eden in full Jeannie costume. Paris Hilton's version of Barbara Eden was walking around the studio lot wearing the complete pink harem outfit, which the show presented as a normal occurrence even though it stretched believability considerably. True to the series' pattern of prioritizing celebrity cameos over historical accuracy, Hilton's Eden character immediately recognizes Meg from her appearances on American Bandstand and makes the girls' day by acknowledging their minor television fame. The casting choice reflected the early 2000s entertainment landscape, when Hilton was at the peak of her fame following her reality show, The Simple Life, and her status as a tabloid fixture, making her an unlikely but attention-grabbing choice to represent the wholesome 1960s television icon. Fact 14. The pilot was filmed in freezing winter. The iconic opening scene of I Dream of Jeannie that established the entire premise of the series was filmed under conditions that were completely opposite to what viewers saw on their television screens, creating a miserable experience for Barbara Eden that she somehow managed to remember fondly despite the physical discomfort involved. The pilot episode's crucial desert island sequence, where Tony Nelson discovers Jeannie's bottle on what was supposed to be a tropical beach in the South Pacific, was actually filmed on Zuma Beach in Malibu during the middle of winter, when temperatures were far from tropical. The production team chose Zuma Beach as their filming location because it provided the isolated, pristine coastline they needed to represent a deserted island somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. However, the timing of the shoot meant that Eden had to perform in her revealing pink harem costume, while dealing with cold winter weather that made the beach feel nothing like the warm paradise the scene was meant to portray. Eden later admitted that she was absolutely freezing throughout the entire filming process, shivering constantly between takes, while trying to maintain the illusion that she was enjoying warm sunshine on a beautiful tropical island. The contrast between what audiences saw on screen and the reality of the filming conditions was stark, as Eden had to pretend to be comfortable and relaxed while actually being cold and miserable in her skimpy costume. Despite the uncomfortable filming conditions, Eden consistently described this beach scene as one of her favorite moments to film during the entire series run. She appreciated the significance of the scene in establishing the show's mythology, and enjoyed the challenge of creating the magical moment when Jeannie first emerges from her bottle to meet Tony Nelson. The winter filming also meant that the crew had to work quickly and efficiently to capture all the necessary shots before weather conditions became even more challenging for the actors. Fact 15. The entire set was burned after cancellation. When I Dream of Jeannie was officially cancelled in 1970, the producers made a shocking decision that would horrify modern television collectors and memorabilia enthusiasts by choosing to completely destroy the entire set, rather than deal with the costs and logistics of storing all the furniture, props, and larger set pieces. This dramatic end to the show's physical legacy was accomplished through a massive bonfire that consumed virtually everything associated with the production, leaving only a handful of small personal items that cast members managed to rescue before the flames consumed 5 years' worth of television history. The decision to burn down the set was purely financial, as the producers calculated that the ongoing storage costs for maintaining all the elaborate furniture, decorative items, and larger props would be prohibitively expensive, with no guarantee that these items would ever be needed again. During the 1970s, this type of destruction was actually a common practice in Hollywood when television series ended, since studios had not yet recognized the potential future value of preserving props and sets for fan interest, museum displays, or reunion projects. The burning took place shortly after filming wrapped on the final episode, with cast members given a brief opportunity to claim any items they wanted to keep as personal mementos before everything else was destroyed. Barbara Eden managed to save her iconic Jeannie bottle, which became one of the most famous television props in history and was later donated to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., where it remains on permanent display. The massive bonfire consumed Tony Nelson's entire house set, including all the furniture, decorations, and household items that had appeared in hundreds of scenes throughout the series. Also destroyed were Jeannie's elaborate bottle interior set, NASA office furniture, and countless smaller props that had been carefully crafted by the art department. Today, these destroyed items would be worth millions of dollars to collectors and museums.